Are you ready to embrace your spiritual warrior within and finally heal what's been keeping you stuck and living in fear? Well, this Aries new moon on April 17th will allow us all to do just that, because it's going to demand that we stop fighting ourselves. It's ushering in the freedom we've needed to finally ask ourselves whether we feel like a brave warrior or as though we are stuck in a cycle of self-sabotage and self-defeating behaviors that keep us too afraid and really unable to move forward in the way we want. So this new moon is more potent than usual because there are 7 planets transiting the sign of Aries. So this is bringing about a time where healing and real progress is possible. This healing will be connected to our inner power, and it may bring about recognizing trauma we've been carrying with us for years around feelings of insecurity, being too fearful to show up and claim our unique place in the world. So we all have a right to exist, and this right is being activated during this new moon. So how we respond to it and whether we decide to act rather than react is really up to us. We've been waiting for this moment for a very long time, specifically since Saturn and Neptune formed their conjunction at 0 degrees of Aries back in February. That's when all this started to be activated. And since then, we've probably felt the forward moving energy touching our lives in really big ways, but we may have felt kind of stuck or unable to get moving. We may have felt like we've been trying to drive a car with one foot on the brake. Obviously, you can't get anywhere if you're doing that. So April is really marking the time where we get to finally take our foot off the brake and get a move on. I mean, it's really go time. So we're going to feel more potent than really perhaps we have for a very long time. So this unprecedented amount of planets in Aries at the time of the new moon is something that I have never seen in my entire career as an astrologer. So we've got the sun and moon at 27 degrees, 28 minutes. And Chiron is close, it's about 26 degrees. And then we've got Saturn, Neptune, Mars, and Mercury, all in the beginning degrees of Aries, activating the Aries energy in full force. So we're gonna feel a push to take action. We're gonna feel a push to move forward. In fact, the pressure to move forward into a new future reality might be so strong that we need to heed with caution. We need to understand it can lead to impulsive action and burnout if we don't slow down and act with discernment. This is high stakes energy, and it's driven by Aries' need to assert itself. So let's understand how Aries archetype shows up within all of us, so we're better equipped at responding to this action-oriented, future-oriented, and fiery energy. So Aries is the beginning of the zodiac. It's the starting point of everything. So because of this, it exists as pure potential. It has the potential to become anything that it can imagine. So Aries, at its very nature, really demands self-assertion, action, and unbridled expression. It represents the I am principle, the need to claim your right to exist and take up space in the world. So Aries is always in this state of becoming. It wants to become more than it already is. So it asks us to go on this never-ending quest for self-discovery. It's never satisfied with who it is in any given moment. It always wants to know itself and discover something new around every corner. So this is why it's continually seeking out new experiences in order to find something unique and previously unrealized about itself. So it's in this constant state of becoming something more than it already is. And this is instinctual. So there's this instinctual need to act, to move, to become, to go after what you desire. It requires that we have freedom, autonomy, and independence, perhaps more than any other sign. We need the freedom to move and the freedom to discover who we are. So this Aries new moon is going to be so intense and more intense than any new moon in previous years because of the fact that Neptune, Mars, Mercury, and Saturn will all be between 2 and 7 degrees of Aries, meaning they're forming a loose sextile to Pluto at 5 degrees of Aquarius. Now, Pluto added to the mix here will be requiring us to understand why. It's going to ask us to look at ourselves honestly and figure out why we desire what we do, why we take the actions we take or don't take the actions we should take. And at the same time, why do we identify with ourselves the way we do? Aries is about our identity, and Pluto wants us to understand it. It wants us to have perspective prior to taking any action and really transform ourselves and our identity at the deepest level. Now, with Mars at 5 degrees of Aries during the new moon, it's forming an almost exact sextile to Pluto. So this brings about initiation, but also it can bring anger and aggression up within us. It can stir this up, asking us to really redefine that warrior archetype, not as this aggressor, but as the guardian of our higher self. This means we have to shift our perspective from fighting the world and others to mastering our impulses. You know, anything that keeps us feeling defensive and stuck in living in survival mode rather than in thriving mode. Aries needs us to feel alive and thrive. So if we find ourselves getting more reactive at this time or triggered by others, we can pause and ask ourselves, where is this trigger coming from? We have to remember that anger is a secondary emotion. It's a response to an underlying emotion. So anger protects us from feeling threatened and vulnerable. So with Chiron so close to the sun and moon, we know there's going to be old wounds surfacing at this time. And these might be related to feelings of impotency, feelings of fear, hurt, insecurity, helplessness. I mean, in Aries, this can be really related to anything that blocks our potency and being able to live out our full potential. So pay attention to what is happening underneath the surface, what is happening when we get angry before lashing out at others or even allowing our anger to implode upon ourselves. We have to pause and ask ourselves, why am I feeling angry and out of control in this moment? You know, I'm sure we've all experienced at one time or another in our lives a feeling of being taken over by our anger, as though we have no control over it. So in these moments, we can't see clearly. We only see red. And then we say and do things we don't mean. And obviously, usually we regret it afterwards. So finding coping strategies to recognize and address our anger helps us get control over it before it gets control over us. And it helps us act more calmly rather than reacting and projecting whatever is going on the inside out into our environment, out onto others. So we have to identify how our defense mechanisms can really masquerade as protection, but actually they block us from being able to go after what we want and achieve what we desire, what we truly desire in our lives. So all this Aries energy, it will definitely propel us forward, and it can really bring about great courage and strength. I mean, we can feel more confident than we've felt in a really long time. It can make us feel like we're ready to come out of hiding and finally go after what it is we want. Find our unique place in the world. Show up and say, here I am. I'm ready to be seen. It also can reveal a special destiny or whatever we feel really instinctually called to do. So it initiates that warrior archetype within. But like any warrior, we can't be brave unless we've learned to fight for what we believe in and learn to fight well. That means respectfully. So because Mars in Aries will be sextile Pluto in Aquarius, we have to be especially conscious of how we assert ourselves with others, whether or not we're letting impulsivity and passion, that fiery passion, kind of fuse or blend with aggression and anger and rage in order to get what we want. Because Aries can incite the willpower to do what must be done, even if that means walking all over people or dominating others. So it's really important to pay attention to this and how we're acting when we're with others. And then in addition to making us more quick to react, all this Aries energy can lead to burnout, like I said earlier, but like really like quitting what we're doing more easily than we normally would, just quitting because we're exhausted or we're overwhelmed, so we give up. And this is why being the slow and steady wins the race motto is really huge here. Trying to push your way through life will only lead to disappointment right now. So this energy is really going to reward self-sovereignty, responsibility, showing up day after day, and taking conscious, repetitive steps toward a goal that's going to bring more reward than impulsive, like momentary bouts of inspiration. So thinking about how to integrate practical techniques for keeping our nervous systems in balance, so we're able to put one foot forward, put in the effort day after day without getting burned out or overly stressed. And then when a self-destructive impulse takes over, and we want to give up or we want to lash out at others, what can we do differently in those moments in order to overcome the discomfort we're feeling in the moment? We can always control ourselves and how we react emotionally. We can't control others, but we can control ourselves. So there's this huge emphasis here on being an emotionally self-contained and sovereign person. Even when the world outside seems chaotic and in crisis and conflict, we can be self-contained. We can choose our battles wisely. So we're learning how to choose our battles. We are naturally becoming more disciplined. So it's like we're becoming a disciplined warrior. We're allowing our soul's purpose to shine through our actions. So there's this raw power that starts to direct our lives when we start letting our soul guide us and create a structured plan that allows for soulful and emotional resilience. That means we're learning how to transition from volatility, from volatile emotional outbursts, to focusing on soul-aligned actions that serve our future self and who we're becoming. This requires us to establish boundaries that protect our healing process, but also not boundaries that keep us isolated or actually unable to embark on new experiences. Because again, in Aries, new experiences are what are required for our growth. So this new moon is asking us to prioritize internal integrity rather than external validation. We have to feel good about ourselves and how we're acting. That's the key here. Rather than looking to the outside and responding or reacting to it or needing validation from others. So I think I'm going to leave it at that today. I really wish you all a wonderful month of April. It's a really exciting and beautiful time. I hope you embark on a new journey and use this energy to cultivate your soul's mission, because the universe is supporting us right now and asking us to claim our space in the world. We can all do this, okay? Bye for now.